we start off with the Dos Equis most interesting band in black metal, the mighty ABIGOR from Austria. Now, ABIGOR covers the spectrum from traditional black metal to avant-garde black metal, and they're definitely not like a starter's black metal band, that's for sure. I would describe their sound as advanced blasphemy. I can only imagine what the sound engineer was thinking when, ABIGOR comes into the studio like, hey, we're ABIGOR, we want to record a black metal album. The engineer's like, oh boy, here we go. Another Dark Throne clone, here we go. And then ABIGOR just fucking pulls this shit out of their locker. WyattXM has a great video on ABIGOR covering their discography if you want to learn more, because quite frankly, this band makes black metal like no one else. A lot of bands, they have a certain sound and they give you that sound every album. But with ABIGOR, it really feels like each album kind of has its own unique identity. NOKTURNAL, to me, is kind of like more melodic black metal. Invoking the Dark Age, kind of more traditional raw metal. Fractal Possession is weird. Channeling the quintessence of Satan is just furious, fast black metal with super heinous harmonies over top. But despite their sonic variants, I think they are generally consistent in the quality of their releases. I think they have a few hits and misses, but 2014's Leitmotif Lucifer and 2021's, Totschlager, a Saint Slayer songbook, has some good stuff. You got the songs like Scarlet Suite for the Devil and Gomorrah Rising. And of course, rest in power to the recently departed guitar player, PK, Peter Kubrick. Up next, we got a gruesome twosome from USA/Colombia, the mighty Inquisition. And I don't know how they do it, but this band manages to sound massive, both live and in the studio, despite having the same number of members as the White Stripes. Now, the most immediate differentiator of this band from other black metal bands is probably vocalist Dagon's unique kind of bullfrog croak, which somewhat kind of sounds like a Both from Immortal, but is more of like a chanting kind of delivery, I guess. But then, you just get blown away by Dagon's awesome guitar riffs, which kind of often blend open chords and power chords, and he often does this kind of like wah type effect with his riffs. And I think Dagon loves writing these super fast technical riffs because Inquisition actually started off as a thrash metal band before transitioning into a black metal band. Although that being said, Inquisition has never shied away from adding a little bit of doom metal elements to their music. But Inquisition are darlings of the underground for a reason. Very consistent both in the quality and quantity of their releases. I believe 9 albums in like 26 years. My favorites of which, 2007's Nefarious Dismal Orations, 2010's Ominous Doctrines of the Perpetual Mystical Macrocosm, and 2002's Invoking the Majestic Throne of Satan. And recently, Inquisition has kind of been more cosmic themed and stuff like that, but I just want to say, for me personally, I'm kind of a bigger fan of their more straightforward occult kind of themes. But the macrocosmic music, that shit's still good too. Just saying, Now, at number 3, we have a band that it is unanimously agreed upon that they are American, Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot is a one-man project manned by Akhenaten, who sometimes, unfortunately, plays every instrument on all of the albums with the exception of the final album, where he got a real drummer, Cryptic Winters, who's a real good drummer, and I think really allowed Akhenaten to kind of fully write songs in such a way that he wouldn't be held back by his percussively challenged drumming ability. Now, you may be thinking, aren't you supposed to be talking about bands that you like? It sounds like this band sucks. And I will concede, I think the debut is trash. I think the second album is kind of okay. But I think Akhenaten really got a hold of songwriting on their third album, Of Great Eternity, in 1997. My main critique of the first 2 albums is that they kind of sound a little too much like over-repetitive Darkthrone. And while this album is definitely repetitive, I find that the songs just kind of hold my interest a little more, and Akhenaten definitely got better on the drums. He put in the work and he got better, so shout out to him. The best Judas Iscariot albums, however, for me, are the 5th album, 1999's Heaven in Flames, and the 6th album, 2002's To Embrace the Corpse's Bleeding, with a quick shout out to, I think, 2000 or 2001's EP, Dethroned, Conquered, and Forgotten. The highlight off Heaven in Flames for me is the opening track, An Eternal Kingdom of Fire, which has this very kind of halftime, groovy midsection that has these choir vocals over top. And I mean, the first time I heard it, my mind was just absolutely blown away. But if you saw my top 15 black metal album rankings, then you know how much in high regard I hold the final Judas Iscariot album. Cliff notes being just great songs, great song diversity, you know, fast songs, groovy songs, songs that start fast and then get groovy. And while I think Judas Iscariot may have, you know, kind of stopped making music prematurely, I think Akhenaten probably still had some good music in him. I can't really fault him for leaving while he's still looking good. For band number 4, how many poles does it take to form a black metal band? Apparently you only need 2. In the case of the mighty MGŁA, featuring M on vocals, guitars, and songwriting, and drumming innovator Darkside, who has that legendary drum part on this album that you might have seen, Exercises in Futility, and on the song Exercises 5, Darkside laid down the drum part heard around the world. But I've waxed poetic about that album enough times, so I'll highlight 2 of my other favorites from MGŁA. 2008's Graza, their debut album, and 2012's With Hearts Towards None, their second album. Graza is pretty grounded and stripped down. You know, there's no overkill with overdubs or anything like that. Just pretty straightforward, nihilistic black metal. You know, my favorite song on the album is the opener, Graza 1, which, even though it's my favorite song, it's about 11 minutes long, and quite frankly, you probably could have shaved like 3-4 minutes off it, but, you know, still a great song. And my favorite moment on the album probably comes from Graza 2. There's kind of a break in the music. Darkside is doing a snare roll, and then it just kind of crescendos, and then boom, goes right into the main riff and just has a great payoff. And then, I think on their second album, MGŁA fully realized their sound. I think they were like 90% of the way there on Graza, but in addition to that, they also added a few 4 to 5 minute tracks, which Graza is 4 songs, I think 38 minutes. This one I think is 6 songs, 42. So, you know, I think brevity should be more embraced in metal. There are too many bands that try to write these 10-minute songs and they just don't have the chops for it. My favorite track on the album is probably the second song, which in the second half of the song, there's kind of this section that has this feeling of just overwhelming, impending doom. Kind of like if you're standing on the beach and you just see a massive, like 200-foot wave coming right at you, and you don't have enough time to move out of the way. You know you're fucked. You just got to let the wave hit you and just hope for the best. Of course, their third album, Exercises, masterpiece. And then there was the follow-up, their fourth album, 2019's Age of Excuse, which I think is a decent album. It's kind of just a continuation of what MGWA's been doing. You know, definitely what I wouldn't point a new recruit to MGWA. I wouldn't point this album out to him first, but if you already like MGWA, you know, give it a spin, see it, you know, see if you like it. I think it's all right. And number 5, the final band on my list, hailing from the Ukraine, Nocturnal Mortum. And I gotta be honest with you, in revisiting Nocturnal Mortum's albums, I absolutely fucked up by not having any of their shit in my top 15 black metal rankings, but rest assured, if at any point down the future I make an expanded list, I guarantee you I will not be making that mistake again. Nocturnal Mortum is such a kick-ass band that they don't even kick your ass the same way twice. So they released their first demo, which I think they only released it as a demo. It was supposed to be an album, but I don't think they had enough money to produce it properly as an album, so it was just a demo, which was death metal. Then their second demo/album, which is probably my favorite from the band, Lunar Poetry, which is like melodic black metal. For fans of Cradle of Filth or Dimmu Borgir, kind of more symphonic black metal, you've got their first official album, Goat Horns, which this band had 2 keyboardists at the time, and they still managed to sound kick-ass. You got Gates of Blasphemous Fire, which is very fast and hectic, kind of like Emperor's Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. They have their Knee Christ album, which is super weird, super raw, and honestly kind of sucks. And then you have the immaculate, immortal masterwork, 2009's The Voice of Steel. I'd highly recommend this if you're a fan of Bathory's Viking metal style. You know, I mean, even at times this album invokes like Pink Floyd and stuff, and not in like a Blood Incantation way where it's the prog stuff, then the metal stuff, and you're kind of hopping back and forth between them. It actually intertwines and interweaves like the Pink Floyd proggy stuff with the black metal. They also include a lot of like folk instruments like flutes and violins and shit. I mean, honestly, words cannot do The Voice of Steel justice. You really just got to listen to it for yourself. So yeah, that's my list. My 5 favorite non-Scandinavian black metal bands. If you're really fiending for more non-Scandinavian black metal bands, I did a list of the top 6 modern black metal bands. 5 of those 6 are non-Scandinavian, but I figure, you know what? This list will be for more kind of established, I guess, classic acts, and then I'll, you know, the newer bands are for the newer bands. So that's my list. Obviously, it should be the start of the new year by the time I upload this video. And if that's the case, your resolution should be to get a fucking job.